Recently, CNN's Jim Acosta raised a good question. Is the press the enemy of the American people? Let's take a look at that. I am Damonous. Jesus is my king. You are my family. So in a big grandstand recently, Jim Acosta, in the White House press briefing with Sarah Sanders, got into a bit of a spat with her. And afterwards, he went to Twitter, of course, and said, "I walked out of the end of that briefing because I am totally saddened by what just happened." Sarah Sanders was repeatedly given a chance to say the press is not the enemy, and she wouldn't do it. Shameful. There's a follow-up tweet from Donald Trump. They asked my daughter, Ivanka, whether or not the media is the enemy of the people. She correctly said no. It is the fake news, which is a large percentage of the media, that is the enemy of the people. So let's take a little bit of a look at the interchange between Sarah Sanders and Jim Acosta.
Jim? I just wanted to follow up on Sarah's question from NPR. She asked you about Ivanka Trump's statement that the press is not the enemy of the people. And she asked you whether or not the press is the enemy of the people. You read off a laundry list of your concerns about the press and things that you feel like are misreported, but you did not say that the press is not the enemy of the people. And I think it would be a good thing if you were to say right here at this briefing that the press, the people who are gathered in this room right now, doing their jobs every day, asking questions of officials like the ones you brought forward earlier, are not the enemy of the people. I think we deserve that.
There's much more to this, and you may have already seen parts of this, but I think that's an interesting comment that Jim Acosta made. That they deserve an answer to the question. That somehow, from being there years and years and being embedded and being given the privilege of reporting the news, gives them a right to answers about their behavior. We can look, there's a long list of correspondence, White House correspondence. But when you look at the list of names, CNN, PBS, CGTN, CBS News, NBC News, ABC News, C-SPAN, CNN, ABC News, CBS News, CBS News. Where's the diversity in this? We have to go down quite a bit. I mean, well, there's Univision, but they're still kind of mainstream media. There's Christian Broadcasting Network. Oh, hey, look here. There's True News. Wow. But out of the long list of all this, even when we get to print and internet, so many mainstream media newspapers and TV outlets. And what about this whole thing of the press being the protectors of you and me? That they alone, NBC, CNN, CBS, that they can protect us. But from what? This is an article from New York Times in their archives, 1993, The Great Debate over NAFTA. Article talks about the political struggles to get NAFTA passed. And they come to a point where in their commentary they say, NAFTA deserves better. The laboriously constructed agreement to phase out trade barriers among the U.S., Mexico, and Canada, which this page has strongly supported, is likely to have a positive, though small, impact on U.S. living standards and provide a modest boost to the Mexican economy. Some American jobs would be lost to cheaper Mexican labor. Other jobs would be gained because American exports would increase as Mexico's high tariffs gradually disappeared. Economics aside, NAFTA's defeat would suggest that the U.S. had abandoned its historical commitment to free trade and would thus discourage other Latin and South American countries. More gibberish that I'm not going to continue. You'll have the link. You can read it yourself. Here's something from 2016 to show that the media, the mainstream media, keeps holding to its same line. This is the Press Herald, establishment press in Oregon. In here, they talk about, hey, it was actually a Republican president and George H.W. Bush and a lot of Republican congressmen that supported NAFTA. True. We all know Clinton was the one who finally pushed it through, though. But here we go. Here we go. The mainstream media protecting us again. Job loss claims overblown. Trump always tends to greatly overstate the impact of NAFTA. We have noted repeatedly before, economists have not reached any firm conclusion on the impact of NAFTA. To anyone like me who's from the Rust Belt, Ohio lost 50,000 jobs to NAFTA, near top in the U.S. You can't be telling me that NAFTA didn't have an impact. I remember what our city looked like 20 years ago, 30 years ago. And I remember, and I know what it looks like now, and I know what happened in the 5 to 10 years immediately after NAFTA was passed. Here's a California newspaper, the Press Democrat. PD editorial. America needs a better NAFTA, not no NAFTA. You know, why bother looking at that? You know what comes next. But there are some places we can get some real news. September 1st, 1997, Economic Policy Institute. Since the North American Free Trade Agreement went into effect in 1994, there has been much debate over its effect on American jobs. This study's new model indicates that the reduction in net exports to Mexico has eliminated 227,000 U.S. job opportunities since 1993, and the reduction in net exports to Canada has eliminated 167,000 job opportunities in that same period. In total, NAFTA resulted in a net loss of 394,835 jobs in its first 3 years. Every now and then, the mainstream media even fesses up. Here we have the Huffington Post, and it's a recent article from 2014. NAFTA 20, 1 million U.S. jobs lost, higher income inequality. And this goes to the idea as well that it's not just that we lost jobs to NAFTA, to Mexico and or Canada, but that the jobs that we retained became more based on service industry and lower paying jobs than the manufacturing jobs we used to have before NAFTA. But wait, remember, this is the press, the protectors of the American people. They're not our enemy, right? New York Times, start with them again. January 22nd, 2003, thinking about Iraq. So at the end of this editorial, it says, let me sum up my argument with two of my favorite sayings. The first is Harvard's president. In the history of the world, no one has ever washed a rented car. It is true of countries as well. Until the Arab peoples are given a real ownership stake in their countries, a real voice in how they are run, they will never wash them, never improve them as they should. Second is an American Indian saying, if we don't turn around now, we may just get where we're going. The Arab world has been digging itself into a hole for a long time. If our generation simply helps it stop digging, possibly our grandchildren and its own will reap the benefits. But if we don't help the Arabs turn around now, they just might get where they're going. A dead end where they will produce more and more undeterables. This is something liberals should care about, because liberating the captive peoples of the Mideast is a virtue in itself, and because in today's globalized world, if you don't visit a bad neighborhood, it will visit you. That is so deep. But wait, there's more. There's The Guardian. They seem to be a defender of free people, right? You know, they broke the Snowden story and all the stuff about the NSA spying on us. They must have had some great editorial thoughts for us regarding Iraq. The arguments for coercive pressure may well end in war, but they combine two laudable motivations. The first is the nature of Saddam Hussein's regime and the call by many Iraqi exiles and dissidents for him to be overthrown. And here again, we can just say blah, 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 as they try and
come up with some type of nuanced commentary, how they're really looking at both sides.
But when it all comes down, let's get to the end of the commentary. War with Iraq may yet not come, but conscious of the potentially terrifying responsibility resting with the British government, we find ourselves supporting the current commitment to a possible use of force. That is not because we have not agonized, as have so many of our readers and those who demonstrated across the country yesterday about what is right. It is because we believe that if Saddam does not yield, military action may eventually be the least awful necessity for Iraq, for the Middle East, and for the world. Man, it's so touching.
That might be a British newspaper, but it's indicative of this whole media conglomerate, one hive mind that the press has become, or what we call the press.
Here's an article from Think Progress, which actually says Washington Post editorial board attempts to erase its pre-war Russian invasion. This is from 2008. Today marks the 5th anniversary of President Bush's mission accomplished. To commemorate this occasion, the Washington Post has trotted out its editorial from May 4, 2003. The reprinted editorial contains a preface emphasizing that the Washington Post disagreed with the infamous banner about mission accomplished. It's wonderful that the Washington Post didn't buy into Bush's PR stunt on May 1st, 2003, but this self-congratulatory reprinting of its May 4th op-ed is disingenuous. Among the nation's major newspapers, the Washington Post editorial board was one of the loudest cheerleaders for war in Iraq. As Chris Mooney wrote for the Columbia Journalism Review, the paper started out hawkishly, echoing many of Bush's arguments and calling war an operation essential to American security even before Powell's presentation. We're talking about Colin Powell, who talked at the United Nations about the need to attack Iraq. This is where in 2016, even people like, Bernie Sanders, even on the left, there's some people who speak out in truth of this. Sanders on the Washington Post, those geniuses backed Iraq war. And what about the most burning thing of all, for those of us who are conservatives, and especially for those of us who would call ourselves Christian? Christian Post, 2013. Christians continue to be undermined by mainstream media. As a journalism student at Northwestern University's Medical School, I have learned how the press can affect public perception of certain societal groups. I began to investigate how news coverage has perpetuated anti-Christian stereotypes that do not reflect the Christians I know or who I am as a follower of Jesus. Since journalists are the gatekeepers of public information, the way they have portrayed Christ followers has undoubtedly influenced Americans' understanding of Christianity. 25% of the respondents to a nationwide Barna survey in 2010 said they weren't able to remember any positive contributions from Christians during recent years. From the Pew Research Center, how the news media covered religion in the general election. And when religion-focused campaign stories were covered by the mainstream press, often the context was negative, controversial, or focused on a perceived political problem. Here's a Christian commentary. A Christmas present from the mainstream media. Newsweek takes a desperate swipe at the integrity of the Bible. This is in 2014. It is not unusual for Newsweek and other major media magazines to publish critical opinions of Christianity and the Bible during major Christian holidays. I have lost count how many March, April issues of such magazines have cast doubt on the resurrection. And yet in recent days, what we're seeing is mainstream media and their confidants and their compatriots trying to remove conservatives or non-mainstream voices from the true press.
Now you can choose to discount InfoWars and certain sites like that and the information they have to offer.
But freedom of speech, freedom of the press, but freedom of speech, as in the First Amendment, protects people like Alex Jones and InfoWars. It does not give a license to CNN, CBS, and ABC. This is an oldie now, but a goodie.
The attack of fake news and attacking our network, I just want to ask you, sir.
I'm changing it from fake news now.
Doesn't that undermine...
Very fake news.
I know, but aren't you...
I think that's the best part. I know. He knows
that they're fake news. You know, Jim Acosta.
Don't be trying to say that you're the real news. Don't be trying to be offended that someone said the press can be members of the press. Certain people in the press can be enemies of the American people. But you think you have some right? You think you have a right to be told whether or not you're the enemy of the people?
You are the enemy of the people. And the defenders of the people, now, through the power of the internet, have become people like me, people like other YouTubers, people with not very much to gain, but the love of their country and the love of their God.
Thanks for watching. Please like this video and subscribe to this channel. Catch me on these alternate media sources.